Okay, Ben, I'm counting on you to tell me when we're live.
We are live.
Great. So welcome to a public hearing of the Joint Standing Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Technology. I'm State Senator Mark Lawrence, the Senate Chair of the committee. I represent Southern York County, which is Kittery, Elliott, South Berwick, half of Berwick, York, and the town of Gunquit. I'll introduce my co-chair, Representative Barry. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Morning, everyone. My name is Seth Berry, and I represent beautiful House District 55, which is Bowdoin, Bowdenham, almost all of Richmond, and Swan Island on the Kennebec.
And I'm just going to go around the screen and ask Representative Wadsworth to introduce himself.
Good morning, everyone. Nathan Wadsworth, House District 70, Hiram, Porter, Brownfield, Freiburg, and Lovell.
And Representative Foster.
Good morning. Steve Foster, representing House District 104, Dexter, Garland, Stetson, Exeter, and Charleston.
Representative Cuddy.
Morning, my name is Scott Cuddy. I represent House District 98, which is Winterport, Frankfort, Searsport, and Swanville.
Representative Kessler.
Good morning. My name is Representative Chris Kessler, representing the middle portion of South Portland and a little portion of Cape Elizabeth, which is District 32.
Representative Carlo.
Good morning, Representative Nathan Carlo from House District 16, which is part of Buxton, all of Hollis, and a little part of Saco. Good to be with you.
Representative Wood.
Good morning. I'm Barb Wood, and I represent House District 38, which is the western end of the peninsula in Portland.
Representative Ziegler.
Good morning. It looks like it's alphabetical again. I am Representative Paige Ziegler. I represent District 96, the 7 towns of Belmont, Liberty, Lincolnville, Muffle, Morrill, Palermo, and Searsmont.
And last but not least, and unfortunately in this alphabet, V comes after Z, Representative Vitelli, Senator Vitelli, excuse me.
Morning. Thank you, Senator Lawrence, Representative Barry. I am Eloise Vitelli, and this is one of the rare occasions when my name comes after Z. Happy to be here this morning. I represent District 23, which is all 10 towns in Saginaw County and the town of Dresden in Lincoln County.
Great. Thank you very much. We're also joined on this Zoom by our committee clerk, Ben Freck, and our analyst, Deirdre Snyder. So we are going to have public hearings today. I just wanted to first start off and thank our Republican leads, my co-chair, Representative Barry, and all the members of the committee for working so well to get these public hearings set up in a Zoom format. Today, I think yesterday or today, it was announced that life expectancy in the US has dropped by a year due to the COVID pandemic and also the pandemic of drug overdose. And so I want to thank the people on this committee for their participation in keeping members of the legislature safe and members of the public safe during this pandemic. We're going to have
Mr. Co-Chair, I just wanted to make sure, I was a little distracted. Did we miss Representative Ziegler, or did he? I thought I saw him trying to speak.
Nope, he did introduce himself, Representative Barry.
Thank you.
So all 9 people have introduced themselves, and as we have additional committee members join us, I will have them introduce themselves. But we'll start right off with our first bill. And Ben, I can't see on the screen, who is the sponsor of LD 82?
That is our very own Representative Kessler.
Okay. So I will recognize Representative Kessler for the purposes of introducing LD 82, resolved to provide participation of the state in the planning and negotiations for the Atlantic Loop Energy Project. But before I do that, Representative Kessler, I forgot to do the introduction on public hearings. This is a public hearing, and we're going to hear testimony from people for, against, or neither for nor against legislation. As chair, I'll recognize first the sponsor of the bill to present the bill, and then any co-sponsors. And then we will move on to people for or against, or neither for nor against. We ask people to limit their testimony to 3 minutes, and I will be running a stopwatch on that, which you will not be able to see on the screen, but I will let you know as we get close to the 3 minutes, excuse me, when that time limit is up. I'll just remind people this is streaming live over YouTube. Everything you say and do while you're on Zoom is being publicly broadcast and publicly recorded. So be careful of your comments. I want to compliment all the committee members on being well dressed for today's session. You all look very good. And during this, excuse me, during this public hearing, there'll be chance after your testimony for members of the committee to ask questions of you. So after you present your 3 minutes of testimony, we'll have a series of questions for people around the committee. So with that, I'll turn it over to Representative Kessler to present LD 82.
Thank you, Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, and distinguished members of this committee. I am honored to have the opportunity to start an important conversation. I consider this resolve a starting point, an opportunity to have a robust discussion about Maine's energy future and what role we are going to play in both New England and in Canada. I want to start off by saying that I appreciate Gordon Weil for raising awareness about what's happening with our Canadian neighbors and his insight into the world of electric utilities in the United States and Canada. This is how I first became aware of the Atlantic Loop. So I should start off by saying, what is the Atlantic Loop? It's a proposed transmission infrastructure project that aims to reduce carbon emissions in Atlantic Canada by transmitting hydroelectric power from the northern provinces to offset the use of oil, coal, and natural gas throughout the region. Nova Scotia, for example, currently generates 60% of its power with coal. At the same time, hydropower generators in Canada have long been selling electricity to New England and continue to seek new customers. Our electrical grid is very much interconnected with theirs, and as recent history shows us, the drive to continue that trend is strong. In preliminary sketches of the Atlantic Loop plan, it is illustrated as running through Maine. I wanted to take a piece of news that I had found about the loop, and it was a quote from Labrador MP Yvonne Jones. And she was quoted in the news saying that the loop could carry the excess of 300 megawatts or so of Muskrat Falls power that has not yet been spoken for and would require more power besides that. She said, quote, "It provides future opportunities for us to do other hydro development projects in Labrador." And I think that's the key here, end quote. In my research on the Atlantic Loop, the first thing I thought of was the CMP cord, how a transmission line project is in the works, under the radar for years, to be executed in a fashion where communities' wishes were ignored. I never want to see things play out like that again. This resolve gives us an opportunity to avoid that, to be proactive rather than reactive. I recognize that the impact that mega dam projects in Canada have had on the environment and on First Nation people. We must ask ourselves, in our drive to decarbonize our grid, do we wish to do it at their expense? Surely not. Could Maine play a role in lessening the drive to build new dams and flood out more Native people? Possibly. The future is yet to be written, and that's what this bill seeks to address. Canada has a strong drive to decarbonize their grid. So does Maine. As Maine builds out our renewable resources, we have the potential to be a significant exporter of clean energy. Maine is much closer to New Brunswick than Newfoundland and Labrador, much closer to Nova Scotia. Today, electrons are flowing north to south, but there's no reason why they couldn't flow in the opposite direction. What opportunities exist to decarbonize our grid in cooperation with our Canadian neighbors? We don't know what this will look like, but I know that if we don't engage in this matter, we will have no influence on the outcome. We'll be playing the same reactionary role. We need to have a seat at the table. So this is the starting point. This is where we decide, as the elected representatives of the people of Maine, what kind of role we wish to play in decarbonizing this region of the world. I can answer any questions. That's the end of my testimony.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for Representative Kessler from the committee? And I ask you to either virtually raise your hand or physically raise your hand. Representative Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Kessler, for your presentation of this bill. One question, as you looked at development of the bill and submission, can you tell us what you found for existing power lines coming into Maine from Canada, and what the situation is with those, with electrons flowing north to south?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. I'll do my best to answer this question. But this really, there are a few scenarios. One is, we have the northern region of the state, the Nemissa territory, that is quite heavily dependent on the Canadian grid. And so there are potential routes through existing transmission corridors up there. If the NECEC is built, that may be a route. So the future, as I said, is yet to be written on what shape this could take. But the point of this is, let's have this discussion now at the very beginning stages. So,
other questions? So I don't know, Representative Kessler, if we get a specific answer to this, but my understanding is the Atlantic Loop has been talked about for about 10 years by Canada, and it suddenly just got reinvigorated by a speech from the throne about wanting to go forward with the project. But my understanding is they're not talking about any new transmission lines to the state of Maine. Is that correct?
I don't know if that is correct. In many preliminary sketches, as I was saying before, there were plans at looking at, for example, when they were still looking at the Northern Pass project, they were looking at certain planning through that region. As I was saying, I don't know. And we can't really know what the true intentions are unless we engage in active communication with them. So,
okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Are there co-sponsors on this bill, Ben?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, so since there are no co-sponsors, we'll move directly on to proponents, people who wish to speak in favor of this bill. Ben, do we have anyone who's indicated they are speaking in favor of this bill?
Yes, I believe I sent you a document this morning, but the first person on my list is Gordon Wheel from the town of Harpswell.
And I see Gordon right there, so I'll recognize Gordon Wheel. if you could just turn your mic on and then introduce yourself and tell where you're from.
Good morning, Senator Lawrence, Representative Barry, and members of the committee. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you now, Gordon.
Thank you. I am Gordon Weil, and I live in the town of Harpswell. And I appreciate having the opportunity to testify, and I may even be able to answer a question or two that were previously asked. But let me just say, this is a proposal to seek a place at the table. It obligates the state to nothing. It does nothing other than get us into the discussion. Why it's important to do, however, is that it expresses not only the will of one branch of the state government, but of the legislature. And that gives weight to the state of Maine in these discussions and in its request to participate. We have experience of having done this sort of thing in the past, as my written testimony indicates, and it's a useful exercise. Whether we can succeed in getting into the discussion or getting anything out of the discussion remains to be seen, but we cannot get anything without being in the discussion. As far as Maine's relevance, there are two main interconnecting lines between us and New Brunswick right now, and two smaller interconnecting lines. So we have 4 interconnections now with New Brunswick. Plus, we have the possibility, at least, of the NECEC interconnection, which would be yet another one to Eastern Canada. There is a proposal to build new transmission in Canada for the purpose of completing the loop, which is being taken very seriously. And the difference is from what's happened in the past is the federal government, in the speech from the throne, that is a statement of policy for the following year, and they have put their money where their mouth is. They are backing this effort financially, and progress is being made, and a report will be due out, an initial report will be due out next month. So this is moving right along. It has a lot to do with a lot of available hydropower in Labrador that will actually increase available wind power in PEI, and a demand for renewable energy in Eastern Canada, which could be served from Maine and New England in a south to north flow on the existing lines, which would increase their reliability. None of this is guaranteed. There is no risk of harm to Maine if they go ahead with the Atlantic Loop or when they go ahead with the Atlantic Loop, but there is a risk of our missing out on potential benefit to Maine that we could get by participating in the discussion with the 5 provinces, most of which have a very similar interest to us. This is a federal project in Canada, not a Hydro-Quebec project, which is something we're more familiar with. And the federal government has a particular interest in dealing with enormous hydro potential that exists in Labrador. 20 years from now, 5,000 megawatts that are now going to Quebec will be available to the province of Newfoundland and Labrador to do whatever they want to do with it. Right now, there is an 824 megawatt generator at Muskrat Falls that has surplus power. Plus, there is a substantial demand in Atlantic Canada for renewable power. And there's no reason why that couldn't be built in Maine, use some in Maine and some to the benefit of Atlantic Canada, flowing north on the existing transmission lines.
Thank you, Gordon. We're at the 3-minute mark, so we appreciate your testimony.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Read what I sent, please.
You're welcome. So we will now go on to our next person to speak in favor of this bill. It's Stephen Weems from Solar Energy Associates of Maine. Stephen?
Good morning, Senator Lawrence, Representative Barry, and other distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Technology. My name is Steve Weems, Executive Director of the Solar Energy Association of Maine. Before I say anything else, I just want to say that Gordon Weil knows several orders of magnitude more about this than I do. So if you have any questions, I would invite you to direct them to Gordon. And good morning to you, Gordon, as well. The Solar Energy Association of Maine appreciates the opportunity to testify in support of LD 82. I'm going to give the very much abridged version of our testimony, which we've submitted in writing. And this resolve contains common sense provisions relating to a potential regional project that could have substantial beneficial ramifications affecting the availability of renewable energy in Maine as we strive to electrify our economy and our daily lives. Just for those of you new members who kind of blurred over on the 86 people and introduced themselves, I just like to note that the Solar Energy Association of Maine is an all-volunteer Maine not-for-profit corporation that exists for to advocate for the development of solar electricity of all project sizes and models for the benefit of all Maine people. We have broad representation from many sectors, which I won't go into now. Although the Atlantic Loop project is not a solar project per se, it has major ramifications for the international transmission line network, as you've heard. The potential availability of renewable energy in northern and eastern Maine and potential markets for our energy, which you've already heard. So the common sense version of this to me is it just makes sense to be at the table, to participate hopefully as an equal in the discussions with the government of Canada and its provinces. It has the potential to connect Maine to vast sources of hydropower and potentially customers for our renewable energy. And perhaps federal government in Canada would volunteer to pay for it. So without having to do anything or agree to anything or any particular outcome, I think we should just, it makes common sense to be at the table. So in that respect, we're happy to support the bill because it relates to a robust grid, which is in all of our interests. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. Weems? Yes, Senator Vitelli.
Thank you, Senator Lawrence, and good morning, Steve. It's nice to see you in the box with the rest of us. My question is to whoever can answer this really, but maybe you can. I'm just wondering if we will be welcomed to have a seat at the table. Is Canada reaching out a hand to include us in this, or are we asking to be included?
Mr. Weems?
You know, it's a great question, Senator Vitelli, and I can't answer it.
Okay.
All right, well, perhaps somebody else who's going to be joining us can come up with that answer.
Or perhaps we could get that question answered at the work session.
Senator, Mr. Wheel, I believe, raised his hand. Did we promote him?
So we are in a public hearing, Ben, so
okay.
We cannot go back to people who have testified.
Okay.
We will be having a work session on this bill, and at that work session, if Mr. Wheel wants to attend and someone on the committee has a question for him, we can direct the question to him. Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Weems? There's a little delay in when you put up your hand to when it comes up virtually, so I'm just giving a second or so. I don't see any more questions, so thank you very much, Mr. Weems. We'll now go on to our third individual testifying for this bill. And I do not see that person on. Oh, no, I see him, Dan Hendrick from the Clearway Energy Group. Dan?
Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, members of the committee, good morning. I'm Dan Hendrick, and I'm Head of External Affairs East for Clearway Energy Group. I'd like to speak in favor of LD 82. By way of introduction, Clearway is one of the largest renewable energy operators in the country, with around 5 gigawatts of assets and a development pipeline of another 9 gigawatts spread across 25 states. We are proud to currently own, operate, and maintain Colby College's solar facility, and we're developing a wind energy facility in Aroostook County named County Wind. In our view, LD82 is perceptive and useful as it continues the long effort to deal with the consequences of Northern Maine not being interconnected with the electric grid of NYSO New England. Part of the solution may include larger and more robust interconnection in Northern Maine with Quebec and New Brunswick. That is a possible outcome of Canada's Atlantic Loop project consideration, and that would happen because it might benefit both nations to have greater power flows between them. And that would in turn be aided by one or more large transmission lines connecting Northern Maine to ISO New England. And I would just add that furthermore, LD82 highlights the importance of transmission as an issue for Maine to reach its climate and economic goals. Just yesterday, folks may have seen that the Governor's Energy Office released its renewable energy goals market assessment, which can light the way for legislative action this session. And I know the report just came out yesterday, but I think the key takeaway is that Maine is on track to meet its RPS goals until 2026, which is in my business sort of tomorrow, essentially. But another 800 to 900 megawatts are needed to meet the 2030 goals thereafter. So just like with the Atlantic Loop, new transmission will be needed to be built to meet these goals. And as just one example is my company's project in Aroostook County, which is located near the town of Sherman, and represents an investment over $1 billion. Along with the many well-paying jobs, it'll generate tens of millions of dollars in taxes, create a TIF district, and much more. But as with the Atlantic Loop project, smart, strategic, and cost-effective upgrades to the transmission system will be critical. So for all these reasons, we hope the committee will advance this worthwhile legislation, and thank you to Representative Kessler for introducing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dan. Are there questions from members of the committee for Dan Hendrick? I do not see any hands up, so you are free, Dan.
Thank you.
We'll now go on to our next individual testifying for this legislation, and that is Eliza Donahue of Maine Audubon. Eliza?
Thanks, Senator Lawrence, Rep. Berry, members of the committee. Again, I'm Eliza Donahue, Director of Advocacy and Staff Attorney for Maine Audubon. Happy to also be supporting this bill. Just to make it clear, our support for this bill shouldn't be confused with support for the project. Frankly, we don't know enough about it to make that assessment. Instead, our support is reflective of the principle of advanced planning, particularly land use planning for transmission. As others have said before me, if Maine's going to meet its greenhouse gas emission reduction goals, we really need to increase renewable energy development. That means a lot more transmission capacity. And that is necessary, but the impact that transmission corridors can have on wildlife populations, habitats, other natural resources is really significant. And as we share in more detail in our testimony, there are a lot of strategies that can be used to avoid and minimize those negative impacts. But each of them, while they're reasonably straightforward, again, require advanced planning, getting a seat at the table early so that we can have natural resource assessments, et cetera, to avoid or minimize impacts to our natural resources. All that said, Maine Audubon recognizes that their at least kind of initial plans would have this project utilize existing transmission in the state. That's great. That's consistent with our planning principles. However, there are still more strategies that can be utilized to minimize the impact of those corridors on, again, habitat. And it's, related to vegetation management, et cetera. And still those items and strategies are best incorporated early in planning stages so that they can be reflected in overall project costs, etc. I was happy to hear from Mr. Hendrick earlier. He referenced a report that I'm sure you guys will hear more about later, the State of Maine's Energy Goals Market Assessment, and it makes very clear, exactly how much or makes clear the need for additional transmission capacity. And I'm hopeful that this bill can get Maine in the practice of really thinking ahead, not just about this project, but about transmission generally, and thinking about how we can have more capacity at the state to be having those really thoughtful conversations now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liza. Are there questions from the committee for Liza Donahue? Give a second to see if there are any hands raised. Seeing none, thank you very much. I believe that brings us to the conclusion of people who have, whoops, I'm sorry. We have one more person interested in testifying in favor of this bill, David Wilby of Long Road Energy. David or Dave?
Thank you, Senator Lawrence. Representative Berry, members of the committee. Good morning. My name is Dave Wilby, Wilby Public Affairs in Brunswick. On behalf of my client, Long Road Energy. Matt Kearns, the Chief Development Officer of Long Road, has filed written testimony in support of LD 82, and I'll just briefly summarize their views and really, I think, underscore some of what you've already heard. But first, by way of background, Long Road develops solar and wind energy projects throughout the United States. They also operate a around-the-clock operations center in Portland. I'd love to invite you all to have a tour of that facility at some point in time. Unfortunately, it'll have to be in a post-COVID world, but hopefully someday we'll get to do that. Long Road has been involved. The individuals at Long Road, including Matt, have been involved in developing renewable power projects in Maine, particularly the parts of Maine that might be most benefited from a better interconnection with Canada, northern Maine and eastern Maine, for many, many years, and have been involved in adding somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 megawatts of clean energy in that region already. Long Road is appreciative of Representative Kessler's bringing forward this bill, really because it's an opportunity through better transmission ties to unlock economic developments in these parts of the state. Like Mr. Hendrick referenced, Long Road also has large-scale wind development opportunities in Aroostook County that are in the early stages of development and could be a dramatic increase in renewable energy development, renewable energy production, plus the economic development that would go with developing these assets. The thing that is holding back these projects and has been holding back these projects for many years is the lack of transmission. They can't reach customers elsewhere in Maine, can't reach customers elsewhere in New England or in Atlantic Canada. So they're sort of stuck in the middle, if you will. So just in conclusion, I'll add that Matt's testimony did note that there's some pretty exhaustive new studies in the region that really show that our relationship with Canada is going to transition more to them as a battery for us, so that it's more bidirectional flows of electricity north and south to create a more reliable and affordable system. So with that, thank you, Chairman Lawrence, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wilby. Are there questions from the committee for Mr. Wilby? Searching all the screens, I don't see anybody, but we're getting a phone call. Oh, Representative Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, my bar came up above my mute hand. So, yes, and I would thank the gentleman for the testimony. My question would be what he would see as he mentions hydro using the line as storage for Maine's renewable energy. When I was on the Commission for Energy Storage, as part of the Maine Climate Council, I quite a few times brought up the fact that hydro would serve as a very good storage capacity for power, and I'm wondering why now we think that that would be an opportunity when at that time most that were there discouraged that discussion. So I would welcome an answer to that. Thank you.
Yeah, great question, Representative Foster. And I would say, I think at a macro level, you are correct. And I think, and again, the testimony that's submitted cites a couple recent studies, one from MIT, one done by the Baker administration, that really point to using those sort of hydro resources at sort of a system-wide balancing mechanism. So it really at the broadest macro kind of ISO New England level, you're absolutely correct. Particularly as, you know, from a Massachusetts perspective, as they look toward bringing on really, really substantial amounts of offshore wind, they're also viewing additional transmission to Canada as a way to keep the system in balance. Maybe the difference from the past conversations you referenced, Representative Foster, is that, you know, it's not necessary to balance everything on a micro level. And maybe, you know, I wasn't part of that conversation. So it may be simply a question of the scale. And I think what we're talking about here is really, you know, at the entire grid level. So I hope that helps answer your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Wilby? I don't see any hands raised, so thank you very much, Mr. Wilby. Our last person who has signed up to testify is Dan Burgess from the Director of the Governor's Energy Office. Dan? And I believe
good morning.
You're testifying neither for nor against. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
Great. Good morning, Senator Lawrence, Representative Barry, and members of the committee. I'm Dan Burgess, Director of the Governor's Energy Office, and then submitting testimony not for nor against. You've gotten a pretty good background from some of the other speakers on kind of the this project and its long history and most recent updates. But I think it's important to remember what's happened over the last year. So in March 2019, the Atlantic provinces and Canadian federal government agreed to develop a clean power roadmap for Atlantic Canada, which is intended to outline a collective vision to advance renewable energy, particularly as they transition away from fossil fuels, but particularly coal. By 2030, they have a mandate to retire coal by 2030. So this clean power roadmap is being overseen by an Atlantic Clean Power Planning Committee that is co-chaired by the Natural Resources Canada, which is from the federal government, and the Nova Scotia Department of Intergovernmental Affairs. So they are senior officials from those entities, and they have a committee which is made up of other Atlantic Canadian government officials, as well as the provincial utilities. Worth noting that is the committee. It is just of the Atlantic provinces. The government of Quebec and Hydro-Quebec are observers of that committee. And to answer Senator Vitelli's question, Maine has not received an invite to participate or to observe. I think some of the dialogue today, I think, raises the need for potential more information. As this committee put together a report from that was released in August, of which transmission through Maine is not mentioned. I think prior maps and graphics had indicated that a loop could potentially go through Maine. I think updates to that show that the focus has really been on kind of the connection to Atlantic Canada. But given Maine's proximity and grid connection to the Atlantic province, the concept does present opportunities for Maine, both for more carbon-free resources to come into Maine, and particularly northern Maine, which is dependent on New Brunswick power, But then, as others have mentioned, the opportunity to export Maine's renewable energy, and the Energy Office is interested in those opportunities. But given what we know about the project or the planning process, that there is the interim report, which does not mention any consideration of Maine, and I think is still in the early planning stages, that the emergency preamble and within the legislation may not be entirely consistent with the planning efforts that are happening. And rather than directing the governor to inform Prime Minister Trudeau and the provinces that we want equal footing at this table, and then to give you, the committee, updates every 3 months, it may be more productive for us to continue monitoring the plan initiatives and advancements of the concept that has been discussed. There are manners and ways for us to do that through respected avenues of coordination between the New England states and Canadian provinces. In particular, Maine is a member of the New England Governors and Eastern Canadian Premiers entity, which works to encourage cooperative agreement of the New England states and the provinces on shared interests, which include energy. So the feeling is that there's an opportunity that we should continue to monitor and engage in where appropriate. There are channels for us to do that, and look forward to working with you all in the committee or others as this legislation a resolve is considered. And again, I'm not against, and I don't think we're against continued coordination and opportunities to advance the state's interest. Just want to make sure that they're aligned with existing efforts and planning when it comes to the proposal. So I'll leave the testimony at that. We'll be submitting written testimony in that vein, and happy to take any questions now and follow up during the work session as needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. Are there questions for the director? Representative Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director, for your testimony. Just curious, a couple of years ago, Quebec was talking about this project, and I believe I saw an illustration of one of the proposed routes to connect up their provinces was going through part of northern Maine as a shorter route. I'm wondering if the Governor's Energy Office doesn't have any of that documentation, or whether or not you're aware of that. Again, that was probably a couple of years ago. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Representative. And I'm happy to follow up with more information. I think as a result of the procurement down in Massachusetts that led to the New England Clean Energy Connect project, there were a number of different proposals being considered or that were put forward to respond to that RFP. And so that could be what you're referring to. There could also be others that are there. With regards to this Atlantic Loop project, in my testimony, we're linking to the latest report from August about kind of a new map, which includes just the transmission upgrades and development in the Canadian provinces, and happy to follow up more on that as needed.
Thank you. Are you all set, Representative Foster?
Yes, thank you.
Representative Wadsworth.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Dan. If you could just follow up with any visual graphics that you have on this Atlantic Loop, that'd be great. I'm familiar with geography, but just like to see those visuals.
Happy to do so, Representative. And I think this interim report that was released in August gives a pretty good high-level overview of what's being considered. It does not kind of have exact details about what's being considered, but does talk about next steps. And you heard some testimony from others about new updates coming forward on this in the coming months. But I'm happy to provide all that we have.
Other questions for Mr. Burgess? Dan, for the work session, if you think perhaps a resolve is not the best way to approach this, but you think there's another way for us to approach it, if you could outline kind of what you want to propose. I know you have a lot on your plate right now, and this is an additional issue, but I think it is an important one for us to know about and be aware of. So if you can think of a way to expeditiously keep our committee informed and know what's going on with this project. I'd like to see what your proposal is.
Happy to do that, Senator. I appreciate the opportunity for that. And I should note a few testifying before me mentioned the report that we released yesterday. Melissa Winnie from my team has been working with committee staff to set up a briefing for this committee, which will include a full review of the results of that. And transmission is something that is highlighted as an issue. So look forward to briefing you on that as well.
And not to get too much involved in the international relations issue, but I realize for a state to contact a premier of another country raises some international and State Department questions and how exactly that's done. So I don't want to make it too complicated for you, but I just would like to know kind of how you see the best way to raise this issue and our interest in it, given the relationship between the US and Canada.
Happy to do so and to work with Representative Kessler and other proponents of the bill on a pathway.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the committee? Yes, Representative Wood.
What's the name of the report that got released yesterday?
It is the Renewable Energy Goals Market Assessment. And we will email to you all right now, so you have the link to it, including the slides in the webinar. It was required by LD 1494, looking at how best to meet our renewable portfolio standard over the next 10 years.
Thank you.
Other questions? Are you all set, Representative Wood? Great. Other questions from the committee for Mr. Burgess? Seeing none, thank you very much. I believe, Ben, this concludes the testimony on this bill. And so I will close the public hearing on LD, and I have to get the name. Is it LD 82?
Yep, that's right.
Good. I have 4 screens going here with different information that I have to follow, including a stopwatch. So I apologize for the delay. And so I'll close the public hearing on LD 82. I don't have my gavel yet, but I can use my coffee cup to gavel the hearing closed. And while we are at this break in between bills, it seems appropriate to introduce the member of our committee who is closest to the border with New Brunswick and Canada. Senator Stewart, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I'm Trey Stewart. I have the honor and distinction of representing Senate District 2, which includes 51 communities in Southern Aroostook and Northern Penobscot counties, including the town of Holton. And I apologize because I actually now have to jump off and run to my other committee. So in and out.
That's fine, Senator Stewart. And I apologize, Representative Grignan is not on, but he also has a district that borders the Canadian border. So I haven't sat down and measured who actually lives closest to the border, but it can be one of my projects for when I have free time in between hearings. So we'll now move on to the public hearing on LD 143.
Senator, may I jump in real quick? I just want to bring members' attention to testimony that will come in late. There was people who will submit written testimony may not necessarily provide oral testimony, and that testimony is allowed to come in during the hearing. And I believe you should all have received something from the Sierra Club mid-hearing. So just want to make sure everybody keeps their eye out for that kind of stuff.
Thank you very much, Ben. That's an important reminder. We'll now go on to a hearing on LD 143, an act to make the arrearage management program permanent. And it's presented again by our own Representative Kessler. So I'll turn it over to Representative Kessler.
Thank you, Senator Lawrence. I will be a bit more brief on this particular bill. A little bit of background as to this particular program. It was established a few years back in an effort to assist people who have gotten behind on their electricity bills to once they have been current on their most recent bills, allows their previous debt to be forgiven, and to be able to help improve their credit and keep themselves out of debt. This particular program has had bipartisan support, and as you can see, it still does. This is co-sponsored with Representative Connor. And last session, we had extended the program to observe how it was doing and to see if there are any improvements that we could make. And frankly, I feel that we don't need to wait to see more data when it comes to helping Mainers who are most vulnerable, have the least ability to pay their bills. I believe that everybody deserves an opportunity at fixing their situation and being able to prosper. So this bill is simply to, rather than keeping on kicking the can, I feel that this is a program that is worth supporting. When people do not pay their bill, those debts are recovered in our rates, and it is socialized to all of us. So this is really, I think, an important piece of our intricate social safety net that is worth preserving. So with that, that is the end of my testimony.
Thank you very much, Representative Kessler. Are there questions from the committee for the sponsor? Representative Wood.
I'm 99.9% sure that I support this. I just want to make sure that I understand that somebody falls behind and then they don't pay what they're in arrears, but they start paying their current bill, and then the arrears is wiped out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions from the committee? And Representative Kessler, I don't see any co-sponsors on this bill. Is that correct?
No, it is co-sponsored by Representative O'Connor.
Okay, is she here to testify, or?
She was sent the link. I have not received written testimony or an oral sign up from Representative O'Connor.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So if that's the case, we will go on to people for the bill, and then we'll move on to people against the bill, and then people neither for nor against. So our first person who indicated he wanted to testify for the bill is James Cody on behalf of Versant Power. James.
Good morning, Chairman Lawrence, Chairman Barry, and members of the committee. First of all, I'll just say I apologize in advance. I think my 8-year-old and 6-year-old have turned into Darth Vader and Yoda in the background behind me. So if you happen to hear them, I apologize. Again, my name is James Cody of Bernstein Shore, and I'm here today on behalf of Versant Power in support of LD 143. Versant Power would like to thank Representative Kessler and O'Connor for bringing this bill forward. The bill is quite straightforward in that it seeks to eliminate future repeal or sunset provisions of the law that governs Maine's arrearage management program. Before our company was Versant, Emera Maine had historically supported extensions of the sunset provisions. While only a relatively small number of people in our service territory take advantage of this program, we believe that it can be a very helpful tool in terms of helping to get customers who have fallen behind in their payments back on track. The program provides a primary benefit of providing participants with coaching and financial incentives. Consistent payments combined with monthly forgiveness credits enable participants to bring their past due balances to zero. The program also provides secondary benefits of connecting customers to organizations like Efficiency Main Trust, who can help those customers address issues such as high or inefficient energy usage. This can make future bills more manageable for customers and reduce the risk that they fall further behind in the future. As Maine becomes increasingly reliant on electricity, we need to make tools available to customers to sustain access to reliable and affordable energy. LD 143 is a great step in that direction, and we hope that this program will continue to be available for eligible customers in the future. Thank you all for your consideration, and we would be happy to provide any information that you would like for the work session.
Are there questions for James? Representative Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Cody, do you have, or could you provide for us an estimate average for those customers of yours that take advantage of the program, an average monthly bill cost that they are paying? Thank you.
I will make sure you have that for the work session. Absolutely.
Are there other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Cody.
Thank you, Senator.
We will now go on to our next individual testifying in favor of the bill. It is Mariah Geer of the Maine Equal Justice. Mariah, and I apologize for butchering your last name.
That is absolutely understandable. No problem. Thank you so much. Good morning, Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, and members of the Joint Standing Commission on Energy, Utilities, and Technology. My name is Mariah Geer, and I am the Moxie Case Coach at Maine Equal Justice. We are a nonprofit legal aid provider working to increase economic security, opportunity, and equity for people in Maine. I'm testifying in support of LD 143, an act to make the arrearage management program permanent. The goal of AMP is to allow low-income customers who have fallen behind in their bills an opportunity to become current and avoid disconnection. The program is designed to use an incentive by rewarding on-time payments going forward. In order to take full advantage of the program, the household needs to be able to make their electricity payments on time for the next 12 months. Critically, the program is also designed to provide energy efficiency tools to help customers reduce their electricity usage with the aim of lowering their bills so that they are more successful and more affordable, contributing to the customer's ability to pay and be successful in the program in the future. In my role at Maine Equal Justice, I work directly with people who are struggling to meet their needs. I help them navigate often complicated systems and advocate for them directly when they find themselves unable to access the supports they need. When I'm working with someone, I do my best to pay attention to their whole situation and to try to think of any programs and resources that could help them that they're not aware of. AMP is often one of those programs that few people are aware of, but it can greatly benefit many households. In particular, the AMP program provides an essential support to two categories of Mainers in my experience. The first category is those who live paycheck to paycheck, but are generally able to pay most of their bills on time, but who would go into debt if they experience an unexpected expense. The pandemic has highlighted just how many Mainers do not have any financial cushion to support them in difficult financial times. But even without a national crisis, many Mainers face unexpected expenses that can devastate them financially. For example, I recently aided someone on a fixed income who needed their furnace replaced. The replacement was covered through another assistance program, but it took time, and the household had to find ways to keep themselves warm through several winter months with no furnace. Now, they're facing a larger electric bill that they can't afford from the many space heaters required to keep both themselves and their pipes from freezing. Paying their electric bill would mean taking money from another bill or another need, and it creates a perpetual cycle of debt that they may never dig themselves out of. AMP can break that cycle. Once the household makes its payments for 12 months, all the back bills will be forgiven and they will be able to be on firm financial footing moving forward. Another category of Mainer who benefits from AMP is those who have long struggled with poverty, but are moving forward into a place of financial stability. Being poor is expensive, and those of us who spend any length of time in poverty often find that even when we're finally moving upwards, we're dragging a heavy burden of debt with us. I would know because I was one of those people. I came to work at Made Equal Justice after years in poverty. Many years ago, I ended up homeless with 2 small children. I made the decision to go to college and get a degree to put us on a better path in life. But getting a degree while raising children isn't fast or cheap. It took me a while, and I ended up with a lot of debt in the process. Once I started working at Made Equal Justice, I was finally earning a living wage, but the amount of debt that I'd carried out of poverty continued to drag my family down. My first winter working at Made Equal Justice was the last time that I qualified financially for the Home Energy Assistance Program, HEAP. At that time, I was carrying a large balance on my electric bill, but I had learned about AMP in my work at Made Equal Justice, and I showed up to my HEAP appointment ready to take advantage of the AMP program. With my new stable income, I was able to pay my bills on time going forward, and in the end, I ended up with about $1,000 forgiven. The boost from AMP was a tremendous help in keeping us stable during a time of transition when things were still somewhat precarious for me and my family. Now, my story is not unique, and neither is the other story I shared. Many Mainers live close to the poverty line, and if we're truly committed as a state to helping people out of poverty and to creating opportunities for economic security for everyone, then we need to keep and strengthen programs like AMP. Now, I've submitted written testimony. My time's up?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, I was just about to say, I've submitted testimony with the rest, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I didn't want to interrupt your testimony because you were on a
I was on a roll.
Sorry. But we do have a 3-minute rule. So are there questions from the committee for Ms. Geer? Yes, Representative Cuddy.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Ms. Geer, for being here and sharing your story with us. I just wanted to ask, was there anything that you wanted to get to in your testimony that you did not have time to get?
No, actually, I was just about to wrap up, so that worked really well. Awesome. I've submitted testimony. There's a lot more detail in there about the program and numbers about how much it helps and stuff, but I thought the story was more important, the personal aspect. Thank you so much.
Other questions from the committee? Representative Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Geer, thank you for your testimony. And I either now or for the work session, I wonder if you could advise us based on what you're hearing, and I'll pose this question to others that are listening or testifying as well today, regarding how it might be maximized, how the purposes of this program might be optimized and better attained by using this moment where we are looking at the program to consider further improvements. I'm interested in how it connects to assistance with other supports, how opportunities to conserve or to find more efficiencies, through weatherization, wrapping your pipes, et cetera, might be found. Any thoughts that you have on that at the moment, or if not, you can certainly get back to us for the work session.
I think one of the big key issues is that nobody knows about the program. It is kind of a hidden gem. And so definitely getting some better outreach out there, it would be wonderful. You qualify by applying for HEAP, and most Mainers do that at some point, but they don't necessarily hear about it there. I had HEAP for years and never heard about AMP. I think that the efficiency aspect of it sounds wonderful, but in practice, I didn't get much of that in my personal experience. They didn't do much outreach around that. I got some light bulbs, but that was the extent of that. But I'm a renter, so I think that might be part of that. So I do think that there are definitely some ways that it could be improved on and better outreach to other people. And then also there are some people in the state that aren't currently covered by it because they are part of a probably a publicly owned electric company. And so making sure that all Mainers are able to take advantage of this would be really important.
Thank you very much.
Oh, one other thing, and then I'll go. Just before someone gets a disconnect, if the electric companies would engage with them and make sure that they know about these programs, I think that would be absolutely incredible.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Gear. Are there any other questions for Ms. Gear before we let her go? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll now go on to next proponent of the bill, Amy Gallant from the Good Shepherd Food Bank. Amy?
Good morning. My name is Amy Regan-Gallant. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy and Research for Good Shepherd Food Bank. I'm very excited to be before your committee, Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, and other members of the committee. I am joined by my associate, Diana Gallant, who is 4 months old and a resident of South Portland, Maine. She is also very excited and will be on her best behavior for the next 3 minutes. So the mission of Good Shepherd Food Bank is to eliminate hunger in Maine by improving access to nutritious foods for people in need, building strong community partnerships, and mobilizing the fight to end hunger here in Maine. We urge you to support LD 143, even though the Arrearage Management Program does not directly put food on the plates of Mainers who cannot afford it. It does relieve the financial stress that too many Mainers are experiencing. Being able to utilize this program and knowing that it's permanent and not dependent upon a legislative re-up, if you will, it can allow a household's financial security to improve, therefore their food security to improve. In 2020, Good Shepherd Food Bank distributed 27.2 million meals to almost 600 agency partners, and that includes healthcare facilities, schools, and the traditional food pantry that we're all aware of. We don't have the numbers of how many people are accessing food pantries here in Maine who are behind in their utility bills. However, Feeding America, which is the nation's network of food banks, they surveyed those who access food banks across the country, and 69% of people utilizing food pantries are choosing between putting food on their table and paying their utility bills. We support the program, we support the bill, we urge you to support the bill, and we thank Representative Kessler and O'Connor for their leadership on this. Happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee for Ms. Gallant? Representative Berry.
Thank you, Ms. Gallant, and it's very nice to meet Diana. And she was very well behaved. We'll see how we'll test her a little bit more. Any thoughts on the question that I posed earlier regarding improvements to the program? And I'll put one further spin on the question. At present, if you have used AMP once, you cannot use it again. And I assume that when it comes to, for example, the programs offered by Good Shepherd, that is not the case. Folks might have a need in the future, and so you meet the need where it is. Do you think it's appropriate that we look again at that, for example, or other changes to the program?
Thank you for the question. I echo what was suggested earlier, that the outreach and the communication about the program's availability is really the biggest gap. And we can all do better. The utility companies can do better. We as community partners with, as I said, almost 600 agency partners, we can do better getting the word out. It's tax season. This is a wonderful opportunity to educate and engage people who we might not be able to get their attention other times of year, particularly around financial supports. So if there's a potential partnership for outreach and education this time of year, and to your question / suggestion that this might be a program that could be utilized more than once, any kind of support service that is time limited is appreciated, but continues to add stress. There's this sense of scarcity that we have just wound around our social supports, that there's not enough, that you can't get it more than once, that you can't get it when you might need it. So anytime there's a program, for example, if I was receiving a disconnect notice, I love the idea, by the way, of having that notification about this program with a disconnect notice or even before a disconnect notice. That's a really stressful moment in my life. I'm looking at my kids, I'm looking at my other bills. if that also says this is the only time that you're going to be eligible for it, we know anecdotally that people are going to say, well, I might need it later, so I'm not going to utilize it now. So I love that question / suggestion. I would be interested to see in the original legislation why it was capped at once. My guess would be fiscal note, but if we do know that it's not as widely utilized as we would all hope, therefore perhaps the impact on a fiscal note for utilization more than once would not be as significant as we were concerned about a couple sessions ago.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there, excuse me, any other questions for Ms. Gallant? Seeing none, thank you very much. Just for scheduling purposes, to let members know and the people testifying on the next bill, my plan is to complete testimony on this bill, and then we will take our 15-minute morning break and come back to the third bill. So we now go on to our public advocate, Barry Hobbins, who wishes to speak in favor of the bill. Barry? We'll wait a moment to allow Mr. Hobbins to get on.
There he is. I've been having problems, but fortunately.
And we can't see your video, just to let you know, Barry.
Oh, you can. Well, they told me it was supposed to be. There we go. Fine. Thank you very much. I apologize. Again, Chairman Lawrence and Chairman Barry, members of the Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee. I'm Barry Hobbins. The Office of the Public Advocate is here to testify in strong support of LD 143, an act to make the arrearage management program permanent. This bill makes permanent the provisions of a law governing arrearage management programs implemented by investor-owned transmission and distribution utilities to assist eligible low-income residential customers who are in arrears on their electricity bills by eliminating the future repeal of the provisions. The present law requires that efficiency main trusts work with utilities that participate in arrearage management programs. The goal of the prior legislation was to offer the program for additional 3 years and become a public law through a public law. That public law was 414, an act to extend arrearage management program, and that was LD 1848. After it became law, after a veto by then Governor LePage was overridden. Changes have been made to the arrearage management program, which is known as the AMP program, through this legislation, and it was a direct result of data analysis from the first 3 years of the program. It was clear that participants would benefit from the additional support in order for the program to be successful. Now, enhanced measures implemented through the prior legislation, which became law, allowed program participants access to more support measures, such as monthly financial counseling with the local community action agencies and additional targeted offerings through Efficiency Main Trust. This proposal, LD 143, requests that the program become permanent. Even with this enhanced support in measures, the program costs are relatively low. The debt forgiven through AMP is debt that was on the books already and would have likely been recovered through rates when it was written off as bad debt in the future. The primary goals of this program is to provide a pathway to avoid disconnection, to reduce bad debt collection costs and disconnection costs, and also establishes, which I think is very important, a positive cooperative relationship with the utility. Efficiency Main Trust also has been assisted to connect customers using high amounts of electricity for targeted intervention. This bill also will make permanent the improvement of customer payment behavior. And it is really important to remember when you're looking at the AMP program and the participants who are among the most vulnerable in our society. And it is often a matter of simply educating them is really not just enough. These individuals are already one crisis ahead of having to leave a program to deal with a more urgent household bill.
Thank you, Barry. We're at the 3-minute mark, so if you could conclude your testimony.
Thank you very much. I provided you testimony, and I think it's very important to note that the participants of the previous legislation are still very actively supportive and would request this committee to support LD 143. I'm sorry I couldn't finish my remarks, but I've been in the same position that both of you have been in, try to chair a hearing, and you can read my remarks at a later time. We'll work with you during the work session. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions from the committee for Mr. Hobbins?
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you very much, Barry. And I'll just check my schedule. We are now on to Michael Stoddard from Efficiency Maine Trust. Michael.
Good morning, Chairman Lawrence, Chairman Barry, members of the committee. My name is Michael Stoddard. I'm the Executive Director of the Efficiency Maine Trust. Appreciate the opportunity to testify today, neither for nor against, as is our typical practice. We, as has been mentioned, are offering a variety of services to customers who do sign up for the AMP program. 100% of them receive outreach from us regarding providing a brief analysis of their electric usage and some tips on how they might conserve and reduce some of that usage. We do, as was mentioned by the testimony of Ms. Deese, provide some kits, some do-it-yourself kits to install low flow devices and LED light bulbs. And for folks who have electric resistance water heaters, we will provide in homes that are suitable for it, a heat pump water heater, which has the ability to cut their consumption from that fairly significant load by 50%. It has the ability to save them about $300 a year if they are switching from an electric resistance water heater to a heat pump water heater. So we're continuing to do that, and we are committed to working closely with the utilities and the Public Advocate's Office and the Commission, to continue providing those services as the program continues. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions from the committee for Mr. Stoddard? Representative Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Stoddard, for your testimony. I'm wondering, is there you mentioned you work with the utilities, the Public Advocate's Office, and the PUC. Is there a loop back available or is in the process where that you ascertain if, in fact, the folks that you've contacted have not only taken advantage of what you've offered, but have also reduced their electric bills as a result? Thank you.
Do you mean, do we go back to check and see what the results were after they've participated, or is that your question?
Basically, yes. It looks like in upcoming testimony from the PUC, one of their concerns is that they may have repeat users of the AMP program, and also that their AMP program participants generally have higher than normal electric bills, as I think you're referring to, and that's what your Efficiency Maine is trying to address. I'm just wondering, do you go back and look at, was it effective for those that are in the program?
I'm not aware that we are proactively going back and checking on the performance after the measures have been installed. I'm not aware that we're doing that, although we did do that a couple of years ago when there was a report required to be presented to your committee. I think it was at the 3-year mark at the end of the original pilot period. So we have done it, but we've done it retroactively. I don't believe we're doing it on an ongoing basis.
Are you all set, Representative Foster?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Representative Berry?
Actually, I'm all set. I was planning to ask the same question as Representative Foster.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Stoddard? Okay, we'll thank you, Michael, and we'll now go on to our last person testifying. We'll be testifying neither for nor against. It's Garrett Corbin of the Maine PUC. Garrett? Need to turn on your mic.
Is that better?
Yes.
Me now. Okay.
Great.
Clicking wasn't working for some reason, but Alt-A does. Good morning, Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, honorable members of the Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee. My name is Garrett Corbin. I'm testifying neither for nor against LD 143, an act to make the arrearage management program permanent on behalf of the Maine Public Utilities Commission. Just before I continue, everyone can hear and see me okay? Still, yeah. Thank you. Okay. The legislation removes the September 30th, 2022 repeal date of the program in current law. The Commission understands that sunset date was included in the original legislation as the program was established as a pilot project. And the Commission offers 3 key points for the committee's consideration. First, there we go. Computer doesn't want to work with me here, but some customers who participate in the program certainly benefit from the program, as the committee has heard this morning. Customers that complete the program will have a fresh start and a valuable opportunity to stay current on their bills, while customers that do not successfully complete the program will have their arrearage amounts reduced, potentially making it easier for them to ultimately get caught up on their bills. Today, this program is even more beneficial to participating customers in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic that continues to make it difficult for many to pay their bills, potentially increasing arrearages. And for these reasons, the legislature may want to permanently place the program into Maine law so that it will continue to be a tool to help low-income customers. In the event that LD 143 is enacted and the program becomes permanent, the Commission would respectfully recommend removing the language in the current law requiring a report assessing the program's effectiveness by next year, given that analysis is somewhat of a heavy lift, and we understand the purpose of it was to assess whether or not to make the program permanent. So for that reason, if the program is permanent already, removing that requirement would seem helpful to us. And I apologize, I've got my notes electronically. I think I'll have hard copies in the future because I'm having some computer issues that are preventing me from reading on. But what the rest of my testimony gets into, just looking back, what our 2018 report found, there are some, in some ways the program's not exactly meeting the intent, you could say, that its initial purpose, which is to help reduce arrearages. That's what some of the data found in 2018. Additional data might show differently. It's hard to say, but of course we have the difficulty. The pandemic would complicate the data. Just a little bit more by way of observation. We found in our report that the participation does help those individual participants, as I mentioned, but it's not necessarily, or it wasn't in 2018, providing clear benefits to all ratepayers. To achieve that objective, there's still some room for improvement in participants' payment patterns, and that could, of course, theoretically reduce bad debt for all ratepayers over the long term. Sorry, I'm probably getting close on time here, and the computer continues to be difficult. So just, I think there, as some questions have brought up already, there are some, there's some more avenue for exploration. on ways to improve the program, but those could be given further consideration, and Commission doesn't see any reason why making the program permanent at this time would necessarily remove opportunity to do that. So I think that's something that we view as a continuing conversation, and just reducing participants' electricity to levels more consistent with other ratepayers, making monthly bills more affordable is an important program objective today. And so just to conclude, I think just to recap, the Commission understands why at this time it might be sensible for the legislature to consider making the program permanent, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Corbin. I think we're all adjusting to how to do this type of public hearing with technology. I know I have 3 screens going at once, and I'm constantly going back and forth and getting texts and emails in between. So it's tough.
Thanks.
So I allowed you a little bit of flexibility there.
Appreciate it. I'm not sure my computer likes having multiple screens and windows and all of that. So
we now have questions for Mr. Corbin, Representative Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Corbin, for your testimony and being here today. Part of your written testimony, to quote it, if I can find it on my other computer, the Commission found in its report that while AMP participation helped the individual participants based on data at that time, it had not provided clear benefits to all ratepayers. And I supported this program in committee before extending it. And I still support the program, but there are a few points in the PUC's testimony that indicate one of the primary goals of this AMP program may not be met to as high a percentage as we would hope. And that is that through the methods of helping people out of the hole that they're in and getting them back to square one, that we would then see an ongoing ability through reduced electric bills and also through a trained, I guess I will say, somebody mentioned earlier that we provide them counseling or on how to keep up with their bills and payments, budgeting. We may not be seeing from your testimony that we're very successful in a high percentage of those people that are in the program becoming those ratepayers that consistently keep up with their bills once they have, I'll call it, graduated from the program. So I'm wondering if the PUC would have any recommendations for changes to this if we're going to make it permanent, where that we might see improvements there. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that question, Representative Foster. I think kind of in a nutshell, what we're saying is that there are benefits to the program. They might not be exactly the benefits that were intended in the first place, but there's clear benefits, as you've heard this morning. And in terms of, we're just trying to, you've heard encouraging people to, try to take advantage, those who are eligible, of arrearage forgiveness is certainly one room, it sounds like, for, better publication of the program. Couldn't hurt. In terms of anything beyond that, the Commission is, constantly considering those ways to improve the program. I might, at the risk of sounding a little bit like Goldilocks, I think some of the thoughts might be a little too hot or a little too cold. And so I think the best way to land on those, neither too hot nor cold, or just sort of beneficial to all ratepayers type recommendations would be for us to continue conversations with stakeholders and try to it's essentially there's room for further discussion there on other more specific tweaks, I think, to the program if there would be any.
A follow-up, Representative Foster.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess, Mr. Corbin, one of the things that I'm a little concerned about from your testimony, PUC mentions that, and I guess I would like for the work session maybe a little more information on this. I'll have to go back and refer to the report that was published earlier. But it seems that people who have participated in the program it appears that a high percentage of them, when it's all over, are not any better off than those who did not participate in the program, but were facing possible loss of their service, and who were in arrears, if you will. And so that's not very encouraging if that percentage is high for the participants in the program, considering what the goals of the program are. So if you could provide maybe a little bit more detail on that for the work session, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure, happy to. Yeah, I think that is, you know, as I was might have intimated earlier, is a result of the data that we had at the time. And I think at that time when that report was delivered, there were many who expressed interest in having better data. And it's just as we're all aware, the data the last couple of years might not necessarily be representative. So that's been a challenge, but that is something that that the program noted. So the report noted.
Great, thank you. Representative Barry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Corbett, for your testimony. And I just wanted to ask if the PUC might be willing to help us think through, if rather than repealing the requirement that you mentioned to study this and look at its effectiveness, perhaps reframing it. You know, I'm very interested in making sure, and you know, clearly others on the committee are as well, that we're getting the benefit where it needs to go, and really, you know, maximizing the possibility of this program. As you know, there's no general fund fiscal note to this, but it does cost money to ratepayers overall, and you know, I think we all want to make sure we're getting the best bang for the buck with that. So, for example, could the PUC help us to look more broadly across the country and even internationally at what is done in other jurisdictions to help make sure that lower income ratepayers are in fact able to pay their bills as much as possible? I know where my wife comes from. They have a lower rate, for example, and I don't know if that works better or not, but it occurs to me that we're thinking inside of a particular box, and maybe we should think more broadly.
Yeah, fair enough. This certainly could be more of a, there's a holistic way to look at it too, in a variety of ways. And of course, the commission would be happy to continue to discuss how best to look back at that or assess that. Thanks.
Great. Are there other questions for Mr. Corbin? Seeing none, thank you very much. This concludes our testimony on this bill, LD 143. So I'll declare the public hearing closed. So we're going to take our regular 15-minute break at this time, and we'll be back at 10:55. Just for everyone on the committee to know, the break is not so much important for us, but it is important for Deirdre and Ben because they're constantly getting emails, constantly getting messages, and this allows them time to catch up before we go back to our hearing on the next bill. So we'll take a 15-minute break and we'll be back at 10:55. If you could mute and stop your video at this time, I would appreciate it.
Senator Brad Sawyer is unable to testify anymore, but he did submit written. And William Post, I have not heard anything from.
Okay, Ben, let me just bring up the documents so I can pull together for the hearing, and we'll wait for members to get back on live, and then I'll start the public hearing.
You got it.
I see 6 members back on live, so I'm asking you if you have your screensaver up. There you go, Representative Kessler. I believe that gives us 7 to start back up. So I see 7 members live. So we will now go on to our next bill. And it is LD 256, an act to adjust sewer and wastewater lien fees. And our presenter today is a former member of the committee, Representative Vicky Dudera. And I'll just tell you, Vicky, as chair, I've suspended for the public. There is a rule that members returning to the committee for the first time each legislative session have to be bearing gifts for the committee, usually of a sweet or something like that. But because we are virtual on Zoom, I've suspended that rule. And when we are back in person, you'll be expected to bring something to your friends on the committee. So with that, I'll go to Representative Dudera to present LD 256. Representative Dudera.
Well, thank you. And yes, I have some homemade biscotti. So I'll have to make a new batch for when we're all together again so I can bring them to you. Of course, I didn't make them. My husband made them, but they're really good. So good morning still. Good morning, Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, members of the Energy, Utilities, and Technology Committee. I'm Representative Vicky Dudera. I represent House District 94, the towns of Camden, Islesboro, and Rockport. I'm here today to present LD 256, an act to adjust sewer and wastewater lien fees. I have submitted this bill at the request of William Post, who is the town manager for the town of Rockport. He's unable to be here today. He had a prior commitment. He was all set for the snow day, but we know how that goes. Rockport, like many small towns in Maine, does not use a software program for wastewater collections. So Maine Water Company bills the town's customers for their wastewater, and then the town has to manually process any liens. I spoke to Megan Brackett. She's the finance director for Rockport, and she explained it this way. She said, first, we prepare the 30-day notices. For this, we're allowed to charge a $1 demand fee. To prepare these 30-day notices and review the accounts to be sure they should be included takes us about 30 minutes to an hour for each account. My assistant who does this work makes $19.10 an hour. The second step of the process is to review all the accounts that we send 30-day notices to and verify if they made the required payment or not. If they haven't, we have to send them a notice of lien. For this process, we're allowed to charge up to $13 municipal fee. Also in this step, we have to do deed research to ensure that we are sending the lien to all other registered lien holders. The process from start to finish is at least an hour, if not several hours, depending on how long the deed research takes. Ms. Brackett says that for someone who does not pay their sewer bill between the 30-day notice and the lien process, the the town can charge them $14 in total to stay with the municipality to help offset costs of performing this work. She points out that at a minimum of 2 hours for each account, the town is out $38.20 in wages alone, and they are only able to recoup $14 of this, which is about 36%. She said, again, this is if we are considering only the minimum hours. Now, I am concerned, and I'm sure you are too, especially after the last bill and the presentations we heard about that. I'm concerned about hurting low-income folks who may already be suffering due to the pandemic. So I asked Megan to tell me about the people in Rockport who do not pay their bills. I asked her whether they're hurting financially, and she said it was a combination. She said the lowest actual home value that they have put a lien on is $145,400 a house. The highest value, $3,790,200. The average home value that they are putting sewer liens on is $355,348. Ms. Brackett summed it up this way. Some people claim that it makes financial sense for them not to pay us and keep their money until they need to send it to us, as they will earn more money keeping it than what they will have to pay us in fees. So this proposal before you increases the flat fee in the sewer wastewater lien statutes from $13 to $25. The fee of $13 has not been adjusted since its adoption in 1987. If it had been annually adjusted to inflation, it would be $29.80 today. Because our statutes have not kept pace, our towns are paying the price, which ultimately means residents are making up the shortfall for the cost of this work through increased property taxes or some other means. It's not fair to our towns, and it isn't fair to people who pay their bills responsibly. It's time that we adjust these fees. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative. Are there questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. We will now go on to people who want to testify in favor of this bill. And I will recognize Kate Dufour of the Maine Municipal Association. Kate?
Good morning, everyone. Senator Lawrence, Representative Berry, and members of the Utility Committee. My name is Kate Dufour, and I'm here on behalf of the Maine Municipal Association to support LB 256. Everything that's in my testimony has already been said. Basically, the 2 points we wanted to raise was that by adjusting the rate, it'll more appropriately reflect the cost to municipalities for processing the tax liens, and it avoids shifting additional burdens to those who are paying their sewer liens in a timely fashion. And to the point that this hasn't been adjusted since 1987, I had a little fun with this because I'll have to admit I was in high school in '87. And here's the perspective that if that alone, I mean, I'm old and I was in high school in '87, but here are a few factoids that I learned when I did a little research. Walk Like an Egyptian by the Bangles was on the top of the charts. And you're welcome. You're going to be humming this song for the next 2 days straight, guaranteed. A gallon of gas was 90 cents. Here's an interesting factoid that I learned. A pack of cigarettes was $1.75. That's not the interesting part. The interesting part is they were sold in vending machines. And the most interesting thing from a nerd like me is The Simpsons made their debut on the Tracy Ullman show in '87. So it's been a long time since these fees have been adjusted. And going back to the point that if we had made adjustments for CPI, we'd be nearly at $30. We think $25 is not a bad compromise. It'll let communities recoup some of those costs and avoid pushing it onto others that are actually timely payments. So I thank you for your time and consideration and would answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. And we thank you for that trip down memory lane. Chair recognizes Representative Wadsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Dufour, was Maine Municipal involved with this proposed rate that Representative Dudera is proposing here?
Yes, we did. At the request of Manager Post, we did work with the representatives to draft something up.
Thank you.
Sorry, I apologize. We have a surprise witness before the committee, so he occasionally needs to have his fluffy head scratched, or he will call the ASPCA on me. Chair recognizes Representative Kessler.
Thank you, Senator. Good morning, Kate. I wanted to just clarify. So this $25 fee is a one-time fee that people pay to the municipality or to the utility to do this processing. Is that correct?
It's a fee that's collected when you go through the lien process. So you don't pay your sewer liens. There's an entire process. It doesn't happen overnight. There are 2 demand notices. There's the bill. There's a warning. You name it. It's a nearly 2-year process to collect it. Either apply the lien or collect the owed taxes. And so that's part of discharging the lien. The community would recoup some of those costs. Right now, it's set in statute at $13. And if you look at the segment of law that's being amended, every other fee associated with the payback is the actual. The only flat is the fee to the treasurer for the work that he puts into the process. So what we're proposing is through that process, we're not asking for the recouped cost to the treasurer or the municipality, but just to adjust that upwards from $13 to $25 to reflect that we have seen increases in the amount of the expenditures associated with collecting those owed fees.
Chair Lawrence, may I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, Representative Kessler.
Thank you. Could you please tell me with the concept of having it be adjusted on an annual basis, based on inflation or what have you, what any potential pushback or who may push back on that?
I don't know who would. We certainly would, because would not push back because it would keep that statute current. That we wouldn't in 25 years from now, another Kate Dufour comes to this committee and says, listen, it was $25. And this weirdo goes through the process of telling you what's the #1 song in the 100s. But I think it would keep it relevant, and it would keep it so that we knew exactly what was happening. And in some cases, the CPI doesn't move. So in those cases, in that year, it would stay the same. So it would make it so that we could avoid a future legislative fix.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Seeing none, thank you. We'll now go on to Leonard Blanchette from the Brunswick Sewer District. Leonard.
Good morning, all. Good morning, Senator Chair Lawrence and Representative Chair Barry, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Energy, Utilities, and Technology. My name is Leonard Blanchette. I am the General Manager of the Brunswick Sewer District and a resident of Winthrop, Maine. I'm here to testify in favor of LD 256, an act to adjust sewer and wastewater lien fees. The proposal of LD 256 is to increase from $13 to $25 the flat fee paid by the property owner served with a lien. This fee is in addition to the statutory fees established in Title 33, Section 751, plus the cost of certified mail, return receipt requested. My sense is that this proposed $25 is to cover at least some of the labor cost. Upon checking with staff, it was noted that it takes, on average, 2 hours to complete the research and recording of a lien. Based on our pay rate plus overhead, that cost to the district is some $120. While this increase will not cover all of our labor costs, it goes a long ways toward limiting the cost that is passed along to all of our other ratepayers. As such, I urge the committee to vote an ought to pass recommendation for LD 256. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions from the committee for Mr. Blanchette? Have to give a moment so we can see, I can see if anybody raises their hands. Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
We'll now go on to William Post from the town of Rockport.
I believe he was unable to join us today, Senator, as well as Mr. Sawyer.
Okay, and thank you, Ben. I know you texted me for that, but I'm just trying to follow so many different screens. So Ben, am I correct that we have no one else who is going to be testifying at this time? Is that correct?
That is my knowledge, yeah.
Okay, so I will declare the public hearing closed. Thank you. That concludes. Thank you, Representative Dudera. It was very good to see you again, and many members on the committee miss you greatly, the members from last year. Thank you. That concludes our public hearings for today. I just want to say I resolved the controversy, and Representative Senator Stewart is the closest to the Canadian border by far from Representative Grignon. And my award goes today to Representative Foster for pronouncing Quebec correctly. It is not Quebec, it is Quebec. And at some time in the future, I'll explain to you why the different pronunciations is so important for us economically in Maine, particularly on energy issues, that we know it is a Quebec and not a Quebec. Any other questions for the committee, for the chairs before we leave? Representative Berry, I'll give you a chance if you want to add in any additional comments.
I think there's nothing from me. Looking forward to seeing everyone again next Tuesday.
Great. Ben or Deirdre, anything?
All good here.
All set.
Deirdre? Okay, thanks a lot. So we'll see you all.